1.7 to start. Perpendicular lines. Two lines that intersect to form right angles. Perpendicular lines. Two lines that intersect to form right angles. Yes, sir. You can have, you can have like perpendicular rays.
It would be like that, except it won't extend.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they don't have to be lines. They can have perpendicular segments and rays as well. Good question, Larry. Parallel, we use two parallel lines for the symbolism. For perpendicular lines, it's this upside down capital T. So maybe to the left of the word perpendicular on your notes, you can put that symbol. This is our perpendicular symbol. You would read it when I look at this picture here. Line AB is perpendicular to line CD. Okay? Upside down capital T means perpendicular. If you see the word perpendicular, then there better be a right angle in your picture. Either it will already be there or you need to put it in there. But perpendicular means they're going to make right angles. Okay? The next two words, perpendicular bisector and angle bisector, use the word bisect. The prefix bi means how many? Two. Good. And sect, like if you dissect something in science, what's sect mean? Cut. Sect means to cut. So if you bisect something, you're going to cut it into two equal parts. So a perpendicular bisector of a segment can be a line, a segment, or a ray. It can be any of those three figures. That is perpendicular to the segment at its midpoint. Perpendicular bisector can be a segment, ray, or line that is perpendicular to a segment at its midpoint. Here's segment EC. If I want to draw in the perpendicular bisector of that, well, what does it mean if it's going to be perpendicular? Make a 90-degree angle. So then I would have to mark that as a right angle. Perpendicular, you always want to put a right angle in there. What does bisect mean? Cut into two equal parts. Well, if this vertical line is bisecting segment EC, what would I know about EP and PC? They would have to be congruent, because if it's bisecting it, it's cutting it right in half. So this half would have to be the same as this half. Perpendicular bisector, a right angle cuts the segment in half. P, therefore, is the midpoint. That's where it says it's intersecting it at its midpoint. This vertical segment, that is the bisector. It can either be a segment, a ray, or a line. It can be any of those three. But EC has to be a segment, because if EC was a line, I wouldn't really be able to bisect it because I can't really measure it because they go on forever. Same with a ray. If it was ray EC, starts at E and goes towards C, I can't really bisect it because it's still going on forever. So this side's always going to be a little longer than this one. So you always bisect segments. You cut segments in half because I can measure those. Okay? But the dude doing the cutting can be anything. It could even be a plane. I could slice a plane through that segment if I wanted to. Angle bisector is a ray that divides an angle into two congruent angles. Angle bisector divides an angle into two congruent angles. Angle ABC, we'll say that ray BX is an angle bisector. So ray BX starts at B, goes towards X. If BX is the bisector of angle ABC, what would I know about angle ABX and XBC? They're equal, they're congruent. An angle bisector will always give you two congruent angles, so we want to mark them congruent. When you see the word bisect from here on out for the rest of the year, you should be marking your pictures. If it's an angle bisector, then you're going to mark 2 angles congruent. If it's a segment bisector, well then you're going to mark 2 segments congruent, because bisect means to cut into 2 congruent parts. All right? Cool. First example. Ray KN bisects angle JKL. The measure of angle JKN equals 5x minus 25, and the measure of angle NKL equals 3x plus 5. Solve for x and find 3 angle measures. Okay. We're going to have to draw ourselves a picture, because they didn't give us one. Start with your angle JKL. Doesn't have to be perfect. I don't know if it's going to be obtuse or acute, so it doesn't really matter. But there's angle JKL. Ray KN is going to bisect this one. Well, ray KN means it starts at K and goes towards N. How do I show in the picture that angle JKL is being bisected? Whoa, Larry. Good, do the congruent symbols. You can do 2 curves, you can do 1 curve, it doesn't matter, just as long as the congruent angles have the same number of curves. They match up. All right, taking what else I know, the measure of angle JKN is 5x minus 25, and NKL is 3x plus 5. We have to come up with an equation to solve for x and find all my angle measures. What do you think, Ethan? Why would you set these expressions equal? But what do you know about those different angles? Excellent. Since the angles are congruent, the expressions have to be equal. They have to be the same, so set them equal to each other. 5x minus 25 equals 3x plus 5. Rachel, do you want to bring 5x's to the right or 3x's to the left? You want to bring 3 to the left? Okay. So then we get 2x minus 25 equals 5. How do I bring my 25 over now, Rachel? So then 2x equals 30. Rachel, when I divide by 2, what do we get for next value? Excellent. Wells. Rachel just helped us figure out that x equals 15. But now I have to find the measure of JKN. JKN. What do I do? But what's that 15 represent? X. So do I want to set this equal to x or plug it in for x? Plug it in for x, right? Okay, Wells, what's 5 times 15? $75 minus 25. Wells, 50, good. Okay, so we know JKN is 50. Hey, Wells, how about NKL? What's 3 times 15? Plus 5. Good. Ethan, does that make sense that they would both be 50 degrees? Why does that make sense? Because they're congruent. They're supposed to be equal. They're supposed to be the same. Caden, we still have to find JKL. How do I find JKL? Okay, what's 50 plus 50? Good. Sir Lancelot, how would you classify a 100-degree angle? Excellent. All right. Go ahead and try number 2 on your own. You could start with a picture somewhat like that. I don't know, maybe you made yours more of an acute angle or more of an obtuse angle. Doesn't matter too much. It says that ray WR bisects angle AWE. What does it mean to bisect an angle? Kyla? Cut it in half, so what would I know about both halves, Kyla? They're congruent. Good, so make sure your picture has those angles marked congruent. Soon there won't only be 2 angles. There might be 6 angles in this picture, and only 2 of them are congruent. So you want to get in the habit of marking the ones congruent, so you can go by looking at them. Constance, if these 2 angles are congruent, what should I do with these 2 expressions to set up an equation? Good, set them equal to each other. They're congruent, so they're supposed to be equal. So we get negative 3x equals negative 48. Divide by negative 3. You get a positive 16. Agree, Max? Good. Okay. Thomas, we're supposed to find the measure of angle AWB. That'd be the two red congruent angles together. Yeah, and that gets you 16. So both of these angles are 16 degrees. So what do I have to do now, Thomas? Okay, what's 16 plus 16? Excellent. Sir Lancelot, how would you classify that angle? Good, that's an acute angle. Okay, angle bisector. Cuts an angle in half. Number 3, segment XZ is the perpendicular bisector of segment AB. Okay, so we can kind of break this up and dissect this sentence if you want. Segment XZ is perpendicular to segment AB. Lucas, if segments are perpendicular, what do we know about them then? Good, they make right angles. So when you see the word perpendicular, you got to mark a right angle. If this one on the left is a right angle, the one adjacent to it would have to be what? A right angle. And then the one adjacent to that below it would be a, and then the last one would be a, okay, you can mark all 4, but you don't have to. Just mark one of them, and we know there's an understanding that they're all going to be 90 degrees then. Okay, so XZ is creating a right angle with AB. We can also say segment XZ is bisecting segment AB. So the vertical segment is bisecting the horizontal segment. Olivia, what does it mean to bisect? Good, so the vertical one, XZ, is cutting the horizontal one in half. So what do I know about both halves? Yeah, how do I mark that? Good, the little hash marks. AC would have to be congruent to CB. I'm going to put 2. You can put 1 or 2. To bisect means to cut in half. If you cut a segment in half or an angle in half, you still get 2 congruent parts. Sarah Hansen, what could we conclude about point C then, if the left side is the same as the right side? Yeah, but what about point C in relation to the segment? If the right side is the same as the left side, then C is supposed to be right in the what then? So it's a, no, what kind of point is it if it's right in the middle? Yes. We could say that C is the midpoint then. For AB, I don't know for sure about XY, but it or XZ, but it definitely is for AB. Just a conclusion there. Jordan Schumacher, I need an equation to solve for X. Good, 6x plus 3 equals 2x plus 15. Those black expressions are representing the segment lengths, not the angle measures, so don't set them equal to 90. Those are the segments. When you subtract both ways, you get 4x equals 12. Divide by 4, and x is equal to 3. Mackenzie, now I have to find the length of AC. Good, 6 times 3, plus 3 more. And since C is the midpoint, what would CB have to be then? Yeah, and it works too, because it gives me 6 plus 15. Remember, without a symbol above it, it means length of. Some of you last week on the quiz, it said find AC, and then you raised your hand and you're like, Mrs. Carroll, what do they want me to find about AC? When there's no symbol, it means length of it. Find me how long it is, the distance between the points. Sarah, what does it mean if two things are perpendicular? To make a right angle, good. Like all the ceiling dividers, the ones that intersect, they're perpendicular to each other. The lines in the bricks, all those that intersect, they're perpendicular to each other. We got perpendicular lines all over. Jordan C. Bisect means to what? Yeah, intersect in the middle and make two congruent parts, right? Either if you bisect an angle, you get two congruent angles. If you bisect a segment, then you get two congruent segments.